In the 1980s, Martin Scorsese's career hit a snag. After starting the decade off with the huge critical success Raging Bull, Scorsese's next film, The King of Comedy, was misunderstood and panned.
My name is Rupert Pupkin. I was born in Clifton, New Jersey, which was not at that time a federal offense. Is there anyone here from Clifton? Oh, good, we can all relax now.
In 1983, after releasing The King of Comedy, Scorsese got down to work on a, no pun intended, huge passion project. For years, he dreamt of turning the Greek novel, The Last Temptation of Christ, into a feature film. Making The Last Temptation of Christ would take a whole lot of capital that Scorsese had accrued over a pretty unrivaled creative run in the 1970s and early 1980s. However, as the budget went up and Christian groups began protesting, Paramount got cold feet and pulled out of the production, leaving it in limbo. Thus began a torturous period of waiting, with Scorsese looking around for another studio. In the breach, Amy Robinson, whose career was started with Mean Streets, gave him a screenplay for a black comedy she wanted to produce with her partner Griffin Dunne. This project was After Hours, the film we are discussing tonight. This is one of the forgotten films that Scorsese directed. It is definitely overshadowed by Raging Bull and Last Temptation of Christ. It fits in Pewter. At a coffee shop, he meets a young woman named Marcy who flirts with him and gives him the number to an art studio she implies she's staying at. Marcy is played by Rosanna. The screenplay was written by a very young screenwriter, Joseph Minion, who was 26 at the time it was released. He had written it, originally called Lies, for a classic Columbia. Anyway, before I introduce the panel, please like this video and subscribe to the Movie Night Extravaganza YouTube channel. Hit that bell to get notified whenever we're streaming. Also, we are now monetized, so if you have any pressing questions during this live stream, send us a super chat, which helps me keep the show running, and which I am obligated by international law, human rights law, to answer. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Movie Night Extra. All of our after parties are on there forever. Okay, let me introduce the panel. Conan Neutron, host of Protonic Reversal, co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza, and frontman for Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends, as well as Action Chief. J. Andrew World, illustrator, book cover artist, artist for Give Them an Argument, co-host for Movie Night Extravaganza, and Bad Takes. Kristina Oakes, this Barbie is streaming on Twitch, twitch.tv/Cosmopolitics, Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky at Cosmopolitics. Send her some subs on Twitch. Rick Valentin is a professor of creative technologies in the School of Music at Illinois State University, has released 15 albums with bands including Holst Your Children, Thoughts Detecting Machines, and Salaryman, and one half of the bi-weekly show Radio Zero. I, of course, am your physically incapable of getting shaved for Mohawk Night host, Forrest Miller. Let's get to sculpting in Soho.
Also, literally one of the first podcasts, Radio Zero, NBD. Also, I hate this view. Thank you.
You know what is interesting about like this film is I totally forgot that Griffin Dunne was the older brother of Dominique Dunne, and their resemblance is like was so strong. Like this came out after she was murdered, like 3 years afterwards.
Dominique Dunn, that's
from Poltergeist.
Of course I know, but yeah. Yeah.
Like I forget that that the Dunn family is a bit of almost like a bit of a dynasty, very, very small, if you will. But of course I know Griffin Dunn from him, the American Werewolf.
Well, yeah, I mean that's like the first thing I saw him in for sure. I mean, and I definitely, when I saw American Werewolf in London, I was like, oh, this isn't quite what I expected, but I'm totally here for it. But I mean, I dare say like this is an outlier in the Scorsese catalog. I love this movie. This movie's awesome. It's hilarious.
I mean, it has one other movie in its company though, which is Bring Out the Dead.
Sure. Well, and also, I mean, I think somebody even said something better in the comments. Like, look, all peace and love, but the Safdie's Good Time is basically like millennial After Hours.
Yeah.
With bisexual lighting. And I mean, like, I'm sure they're fans,
People have also like compared it to Beau is Afraid, which is really
totally. Yeah.
That it's really funny that Scorsese liked that movie so much because he likes this movie. He likes like this as a project that he worked on. It like brought him back to having like mojo again after he kind of had some crushing cancellations of projects and becoming comedy, which now has like a resurgence and like everybody loves it. But at the time,
the Joker film kind of like took in a little bit of inspo from that, so that kind of
it literally is just that movie.
It's basically just that movie, but a superhero movie. Yeah, Rick, what's your history with After Hours? Because I know you're a fan. That's why we
also welcome Rick. Thank you for coming.
Also welcome. 17 minutes later, hey Rick, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Actually, I was trying to remember when I first saw it, but I believe I saw this film projected. Not in a theater, but I'm old enough where at universities they used to have like a film society, and they would, rent 16 millimeter films, and every weekend would show movies. And I believe this was a film they showed, and so I saw it really early on, and loved it. And I think it definitely was of that era of cult film, similar to like Blade Runner. Even Apocalypse Now in a weird way. These films are now considered great, but I think at the time there was a little bit of sort of they were kind of seen as failures in a way, right? And then there was a cult of people, basically college students, right, and film critics who loved it. And then once VHS rentals came about, I think the popularity grew. So that's kind of my history with it. Is it was just one of those examples of a great, amazing movie that no one seemed to like, and everyone viewed externally as a flop and a failure. But it was like, well, maybe it's a financial failure, but for me, it was a real, I don't know. It was a great movie. It hit me at the right time in my early 20s. It really encapsulates that era right before the internet.
Yeah, this is a perfect example of this movie doesn't exist with the cell phones, right? Like, there's no way. Like nothing, none of the problems that he gets into, like, so many of the things would be solved. Like, much in the way that, like, Ferris Bueller's Day Off doesn't work with cell phones. It's like in that catalog of movie.
He actually just talked about that with Fran Lebowitz. They had this long-ranging conversation.
Oh, that's in the because there's a new Criterion edition of this, and
so they have a long and I clipped stuff from it. I didn't clip that part, but they have a long-ranging conversation about this movie and about New York City, because literally, like, there is no abandoned part of New York City anymore, right? Like the whole point of this movie is that they were able to shoot it because this part of Soho was completely desolate.
There was no one there. Yeah, it was either people were like. During the day, people were there, but at night, it was like, no, nothing.
Yeah, everyone was everyone was in like Club Berlin, pretty much, like those kinds of places, or like in their lofts. Like nobody was kind of wandering the streets in the 80s in this part of New York City. The buildings, like most of them were abandoned. It's like one of the oldest parts of the city that they filmed like all of this on. So it was just like this, dark, desolate like stretch of city that he could use to do pretty much whatever he wants. That does not exist anymore in the city. Like there's anything like that either has been turned into like multi-million-dollar fucking like apartments, or
it's been Disneyfied. Yeah, absolutely. Like
it's a time capsule of pre-Giuliani New York, and it's like every city was like that. You had these crazy little pockets where all the artists and the musicians lived and could afford to live, and that's all gone again, just in the same way that the fear of having, like losing, not having cash, having
Right. Yeah, your
cancer,
$20 flies out the window, which is like
being able to, being able to live in a city, even though it's dangerous, you're an artist, you're a musician, and you've got this weird little subculture and camp kind of area of the city you can live in. That's all gone. And that's what I love about it too, is that time capsule. It's just like, oh yeah, I think the first time I went to New York City, as a musician, it would have been late 80s, and it was parts of it were like that. Soho, right? You'd go and play, and it was super scary, and it was like, okay, don't park the van right in front of the club. Somebody should be in the van.
Don't wander away.
Wander away after the show. Oh, where are you going to sleep? You can't stay in the city overnight with the van. All that kind of stuff. And now, you're right. It's just like Disneyland, and most cities are like that now. It's like all been pushed out. There's not,
I feel like the
thing in some ways, but it's bad in others.
The symbolic nature of like the bagel and cream cheese paper mache paperweight is kind of signifying the beginning of that, because it's like the commodification of this art that's happening, like this bohemian art in Soho that's like so famous.
Can I just say that Rosanna Arquette
just getting out the last part of the thought, being forced to be used as something utilitarian within like a corporate world, within a corporate white collar office that it doesn't fit in there, right? Like you can't put that on your actual table and be like, you know what I mean? Like, but
Rosanna Arquette and Linda Fiorentini had that loft to themselves. Right, like just like how, like that's, and on rewatch, of course, that's what I'm thinking about now. Like as a kid, I wouldn't have noticed that, but like, like I was like, can you imagine what that would go for now? Like,
but that was the thing back then. You
$1 million a month.
If it was like in Alphabet City or something in Manhattan, you could live in a place like that. It was super dangerous. There were no stores around.
Right.
You couldn't go outside at night. You kind of would, but it was possible. You could get great spaces, and live in those
crowbar, the crowbar propped up against the door.
You gotta lock up your loft.
There's also like the melding of kind of strung out gay culture at this point in this movie, like throughout it, right? Like pretty much like every other character you see is like some gay bohemian guy, and fucking like even when he's in the bar and he finds out that like Marcy's dead, the bartender. It's like there's like the two guys dressed up with the chains.
Yeah, like the two leather daddies that are. Yeah. Oh no, that's terrible.
And it's like a mixture between that, but then even that's getting more respectable, and you have like
and then he meets the guy in the park. Like that's how gay people used to meet back in the day. Apparently, you go to the park and there's just gay people there.
That was another thing about this film, is at that time, you did not see a diversity in gay characters. It was very, very, if there was a gay character, it would be super stereotyped, right? And this is Variety, the guys, who are reporting about the break-ins, it's like, well, they're probably gay, but they're not, extravagant or like a stereotype, or I guess they are. Now you would say, oh, there's this stereotype, this stereotype, this stereotype, whereas before it was just basically like, at that time, culturally, it was like what, Paul Lynde or something, it was like very, very specific. And to see a subculture like this, now it's like, oh, you got the internet, you got other movies and everything like that. This was a really kind of connecting thing, in the same way like Twin Peaks was later, right? Where it was like, oh, this is about the freaks who live in the city, the artist people, the music people, and it was like, oh, I know these people, and it was like a little glimpse into that, and the romantic idea of New York City is like,
he gives you a little glimpse of that really early on in Mean Streets. There's the scene where they're all fleeing the shooting at the bar, and there's the very flamboyant gay guy that has to get into their car with them that they all know clearly, but they're all trying to pretend like they don't know, and he's like yelling out the window, like he's like, why should I? That guy, like, I feel like it's a lot more. By the time you get to this movie, I think Scorsese's take on gay culture in the city is a lot more nuanced than the two guys that get into the car that they kick out because they're too drunk and
too gay.
Too gay.
Now, do you
too
think,
gay for Harvey Keitel and the guy that played fucking Richie Aprile.
Did you think Scorsese actually smoked pot before this movie?
Like,
I mean, Like he seems like a square, right?
Oh no.
How,
He seems
how would
very
anyone in this
interesting.
panel know the answer to that question, Andy?
Well, I can tell you, it's the. I think this is the post Coke movie. I mean, there's you
Yeah,
listen
yeah,
to interviews
this-
with
yeah.
him, and
Well,
I mean,
Raging
there's like
Bull. Raging Bull is the
four-
post Coke movie.
Yeah. So
First.
it's another.
Do, do,
post-
do, do.
Yeah.
No,
so
well,
he's-
no, it's a big part of why that movie was made is that Scorsese had overdosed, like he really needed help,
Oh, I
and
forgot
Robert
about
De
that.
Niro picked him up out of like pretty much like he
Yeah.
visited him in the hospital and was like, you can either go into being a permanent Coke fiend pretty much, or you can stop now. And Raging Bull, the entire point of that movie is he's battling his own demons through a very abusive guy with CTE.
I
I'm
mean,
just
if,
imagining De Niro carrying Scorsese around like a little baby.
if Robert De Niro is telling me the ship up or ship out or whatever, I'm like, okay, I'll listen to you, Bobby. Okay, I'll
Bobby
keep
D.
the Coke addiction.
But I mean, this probably is like also. I mean, this is another post Coke movie for sure. But that's like the famous story about his like kicking the habit, just like Scarface is the story about like Oliver Stone kicking the habit, right? Like all of these kind of new Hollywood directors at some point within the same kind of time period in the 80s had to like reckon with the fact that they all had Coke addictions by this point, and it probably helped them writing in the moment, but then like not it's not a conceivable plan for a long period of time, like otherwise you're gonna get strung out like this whole movie kind of feels.
yeah. So I would argue that this whole movie is kind of just a strung out kind of Coke nightmare, right? It's like the tail end of that era, and where everyone's burning out, and it's really like sort of hyper and intense and crazy, and everyone's freaking nuts, right? They're just kind of fried.
Well,
Up all night.
and I think it also operates in a rare echelon that even without like the drug references, it still works as just that generalized anxiety. Like there's a certain kind of movie which is the person stuck after everything's closed and trying to just do a thing and trying to get home. And as someone that like really, I've never been a drug guy like at all, and like I don't think you need that to appreciate any of this. But like I think it's something where you can get some value out of that, especially like around this time period. Again, that certain things just wouldn't happen, but small things. Talk about Beau was Afraid. The exchange at the subway counter, where it's like, oh yeah, fare went up, and he's like trying to like count out the change. He's like, oh my God, like and then he jumps in, and the cop, the guard, whatever, gets him, and then he's like, I've never done this before. I'm so sorry. It's just like, it's like if you were to take like some small moments, it's like, yeah, that's Ari Aster's seen this for sure, and like, we did the episode. I like Beau was Afraid quite a bit, but like, I refrained from calling out in the episode, but holy crap, on rewatch, I'm like, yeah, that's almost like the bodega scene.
Down to the music and everything like
right,
this.
yeah. Totally.
But I do really like my favorite line I think of this whole movie is when he's talking to the fair guy and he's like yeah, I could lose my job, and he's like who would know, and he's like, I might get drunk, I might tell somebody at a party, who knows, like
yeah, that's such an incredible, it's so funny. That's the thing, is like this is a very funny movie, and how many Scorsese movies can you say that about? Not very many of them.
And
Well,
I'm thinking
Goodfellas
about,
is a comedy.
Well,
yeah, and I'm thinking like how many movies, like for me, I think that's why I love this movie so much, is like I don't know if I've laughed as much in other movies upon repeat viewing. Also, like I continuously laugh when I watch this movie. Now I've been told that means there's something wrong with me, but for me, it's like there are golden lines almost every few minutes.
like when that almost like throwaway scene where like he's out and like he sees through the window like the woman like shoot the guy, so I bet I'm gonna get blamed for that too. I was like, that's amazing. That's amazing. And it ups the body count by 1 too, which means if that's your metric. But like I mean, it's genuinely like that's a hilarious explanation. Like anybody, like this is great. I love that the dude who wrote this, is his name really Minion?
yeah, Joseph Minion.
Yeah.
Boy, that's unfortunate, and that's coming from someone named Conan. He wrote it first class, right? He wrote it for like his film class.
Can you
Which
just
is
imagine his
insane.
grandkids right now, like going through school as minions?
Oh my God! Just let them change their name,
Yeah.
please.
It's based off of a monologue that he heard in one of his classes, and then the guy that the guy that gave the monologue after the fact said like, wow, like if I was a litigious guy, I could have like completely sued them for
Yeah.
for cribbing my monologue because I know that kid was in my class.
But I mean, it's a very smart script too. It's very, and it's on the page. That's the other thing is that like, and
Well,
that's one of the things I like about it.
And I think that's an important thing to talk about. I mean, there's a large amount of stuff lifted in this movie, and yeah, that Joe Frank monologue, the Joe Frank radio show, that the first 30 minutes of the movie is basically lifted from. And I don't know if Joe Franks ever did publicly talk about it. I think there was a payment involved. What's really interesting about Joe Frank, as he did these radio programs for 30 or 40 years, some of the last ones, he had another actor. He always had actors, playing characters on his show, and one of them was Larry Block. Was on like the last few seasons of Joe Frank, and Larry Block played the cab driver in After Hours.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. The guy with the captain's hat.
And I would just love to know, like, did they meet each other because of some connection through After Hours, or did Larry Block know Joe Frank back then? And it just gets super complicated and loopy and weird about how tied up this all is. And the fact that Joe Minion didn't really do a huge amount of script writing after this, I think he got pretty tagged as a plagiarist a little bit. He kind of lifted a large amount of the initial narrative of this film directly from Joe Frank. Thinking, oh, I'm college student. You start writing.
No one knows this.
Yeah, and you just kind of go with it, and it's a great movie. But it's also sometimes you gotta give people credit. And
I guess Joe Frank actually did file a plagiarism suit.
There we go.
After this movie came out,
right.
And it was happening during his Vampire's Kiss thing, and that's why his career never actually took off.
Yeah.
Whoopsie.
Yeah.
Somehow Scorsese was untouched by his by the plagiarism.
Well, he just directed it. I mean, it was really Griffin Dunn and Amy Robinson's deal. Like they were the ones that wanted to.
They knew well enough what was going on, right?
I don't know. Maybe it was just like, I mean, I think at the time, I think Scorsese was just bummed that he couldn't get Last Temptation of Christ made, right? I mean, that was like his.
He's like, I'll just make this movie, whatever.
He's like, whatever, this will be a good, and like even now, like he, God damn it, going into the secret minions, God damn it, I gotta stop looking at the chat. That he. It was like a breaker for him, right? Like, and it sort of like allowed him, and that's one of the reasons I think you were saying that, Forrest, that it's why he like thinks so fondly of it, because it sort of like got him back into, doing movies and like kind of like remembering the love of it and not just the disappointment. And I think that's notable considering that, because again, remember Amy Robinson, Mean Streets, right? Like, and we covered Mean Streets.
I always wondered what happened to Teresa from Mean
Streets. It's like what happened to her? Like, she's great.
Yeah.
Like, where?
and just the fact, if you listen to the commentary track where Michael Ballhaus, the cinematographer, is talking about how many shots they did per night and how many, it's something like 600 shots they did in 40 days, 30 days. I mean, it was really, it's an amazing feat. This movie, how good it looks, how amazing it is, and how fast they did it. I mean, it was basically an independent film.
Including one thing where they actually rigged a camera to the keys when they throw down the keys, and like an early version.
That's so crazy,
something like and I have a clip where they talks about that later, but this is him talking to Fran Lebowitz about what this movie kind of did for him. And
which before we start this, I don't think I've ever seen Fran Lebowitz be so excited to positively talk about something ever. Like she is excited to talk about After Hours with Marty.
This also proves that even Scorsese had a flop era. Like
it's true.
Even the greats.
So I know you're trying to intro the clip, but I just had to point that out because I watched this feature and I was like, wow, she's pretty animated and like isn't being a cranky. Anyway, go ahead.
It's crazy that his post Coke era though is his flop era, and Oliver Stone's post Coke era is his like most successful era of his career.
Yeah,
because, like, Scarface was written
different Cokes for different folks.
Yeah,
thank you.
Didn't quite have an ending at that point, but in any event, I thought, well, look, it's containable. It's shooting at night. It's in areas that are deserted. There's only a few characters. And I really loved the idea of the dark comedy of it. And I actually kind of identified with the character at that point. just lost in the underworld. I was at a very interesting point in my filmmaking. I was completely locked out by that point.
What was the movie right before it?
King of Comedy, very, very tough picture to make for me. And for the whole year of '83, I worked on Last Temptation, went flying around the world, getting costumes, locations, casting, everything else. And then that was canceled 4 weeks before the end of the year. King of Comedy was listed by the end of the year, New Year's Eve. I remember on Entertainment Tonight, I happened to have it on, and I was putting on a tie to go to a dinner for New Year's Eve. And they said, and now the flop of the year. And
King of Comedy?
And the curtain opened, and there was King of Comedy. So what had happened during that period of time, King of Comedy was completely ignored, although it did receive a couple of good reviews.
Not by me.
No, I know.
It's a great
and
movie.
not from the British. The British loved it. So that New Year's Eve, not only was I, cast out of Paradise
By Entertainment Tonight.
Yes. No, Entertainment Tonight finally, they did the final blessing, so to speak. Not only is your latest film complete laughingstock of Hollywood, where you couldn't get it made and everything, they spent millions on it already, and the plug was pulled at the last minute, but your last picture is the flop of the year. I came back to New York, and for some crazy reason, wound up living in the lofts downtown in Soho, or in Tribeca, actually. But in any event, at that point, it was kind of open again. I had to start all over again. I wanted Gangs of New York, and that couldn't get financed. I wanted Last Temptation. The plug was pulled. Nobody would go near me on it. So I had to start all over again. I was completely no money at all. Bought this loft. And buying a loft is one thing. Fixing up the loft is another.
Especially then.
Yes.
Right? Because it had just recently been a shoe factory.
That's right.
Right.
And the brickwork.
The plumbing.
Yeah, the plumbing. One elevator, and I'm on the 10th floor. And when the elevator isn't working, we're hiking, And I'm saying to myself, I'm come from the tenements, Okay, this is where I belong, in these streets with the cobblestones and the red brick.
And the metal trash cans.
The metal trash cans.
Which no one remembers except us.
No,
right?
Exactly.
Because they made this huge noise.
The noise of the construction, the noise of the streets. It's something that I got away from for years. And this is really, I'm back where, and I realized I don't belong here. But I'm stuck here. I can't, broke. And there were no restaurants. There was
nothing. If I would, I lived in the Village at the time, if I would go to Soho to visit, I've had friends who lived there, they would say things like, could you bring milk?
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Could you bring a pack of cigarettes?
Yeah. Prior to that, Soho meant the image in my mind, and this kind of played into the movie, was sinister. Because if you want to steal hubcaps, which I know that, I don't know.
It's always been my priority.
Exactly, Fran. I'm not sure of it. If you want to steal a hubcap, you go to Crosby Street, you go to Mercer Street, you go around that area at night. Because during the day, trucks, open, people get chaos and traffic. At night, dead quiet, isolated. Every now and then you see a couple in a doorway having some kind of sex thing. Or you go get mugged. Or you beat somebody up. That's what it was. You're taken to Crosby Street and you say, hey, want to talk to you for a second, and you work them over. Nobody knows. That was Soho to me.
Different times. It's different times, man.
With him wanting to do, the Last Temptation of Christ, I was looking into it because I was like, he did make it after this film, and I totally forgot that Willem Dafoe was Jesus and Harvey Keitel was Judas, and everyone was like, yeah, Harvey Keitel as Judas was bad.
I mean, that's a different discussion. I'm more amazed that he still had Gangs of New York, that script back then. Because you think about,
when I'm thinking for that long?
Yeah, that's what he was saying, Gangs of New York back then. So, when you're thinking about other times of art, for Rick and I, when we're making records, you write the record and you record the record and so on and so on. But it's interesting to think about with screenwriting and directing. You can have a script. Good script is still going to be a good script. 20 years later when you apparently finally get the funding to do it. So it's interesting to have that be somewhat asynchronous, especially, I think it works fine. Gangs of New York is a period piece, right? That's not going to change. It's still going to.
Gangs of New York took decades to make, and Goodfellas took just a few years.
Yeah, that was
based off a book. And also Last Temptation of Christ took him almost a decade to make, if you think about it.
Well, Last Temptation of Christ, the original cast of it was Aidan Quinn as Jesus, Sting as Pontius Pilate, and Ray Davies from the Kinks as
What?
Judas. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, God, you're roping me into talking about Last Temptation of Christ, which I really don't want to do. I want to
But
talk
were-
about After Hours, but
Were
that
there
is
ever any other considerations casting wise for After Hours besides like because since
well, Griffin Dunn and Amy
Robinson.
Robinson, they're the ones that brought the script to, as I call him, Marty, as does Fran. So like it was always going to be Griffin Dunn in the main role because that's like what he was looking for. I think.
Yeah, and
And then-
it was originally supposed to be directed by Tim Burton.
Yeah. And then
Right, I forgot about that.
Terry Garr was attached. Griffin Dunn says in the commentary track that Terry Garr was the first actress to agree. She was attached to the project before, Tim
Legend.
Burton. And so she was old friends because Griffin Dunn, because of his father,
Right.
had lived
Yeah.
in Los Angeles, and so
He's got those connections.
Yeah, knew Terry Garr for years.
He's also Joan Didion's nephew,
Yep.
which is kind of
Really?
yeah.
That's crazy.
Is he related to Brooks and Dunn too?
He's the one that made that documentary that's like Joan Didion at home, and it's him hanging out with Joan Didion when she's like really old. Yeah.
I love that Terry Garr, her character in this is great, and then like she puts on the Monkees record, and that's doubly hilarious when you know that Terry Garr was in Head, the Monkees movie.
Yeah.
Totally, yeah. 60s go-go dancer. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
in Elvis movie too, right? I can't remember what Elvis movie.
Her character also has an entire shelf of hairspray, which I never
Oh,
caught.
yeah, the
until this
Aquanet.
review. I was like, holy
That's
crap,
the other
that's a
thing.
lot.
Yeah, they're just little things like the Aquanet was like that. Everybody had Aquanet.
That's what kept the
Basically,
beehives going in
Yeah.
the 60s and the
and then
metal hair going into
yeah,
like
it
the
looped
hair
around
bands
in
and
the
all
80s.
that.
Hey,
Yeah.
in the 80s in Texas, let me tell you, it was nothing but big hair and beehives. It was
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
We created the whole neo zone in Texas.
But now women use it for the Karen cuts.
Terry Garr was also the hot assistant of Gene Wilder in
in
Young Frankenstein. Yeah. Which,
I remember.
I was like,
Close
I know her from somewhere, and it was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, Young
She's
Frankenstein.
the wife in Close Encounters.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. Well, and also it's funny that like both the parents in Home Alone are in this too, like years before that.
Yeah.
film.
Yeah.
I forgot about that also. I was like, oh yeah.
But they're
John
like,
Hurt.
you know what? It would be so funny if we did like a movie together in the
Yeah.
future. It became a classic Christmas hit. Like, what are the odds?
Yeah.
Which also
And I mean-
makes it funny that Joe Pesci is the guy like in Home Alone. He's the fucking burglar.
He's one of
too.
the,
Oh,
the
yeah.
Yep.
jokes, yeah.
It's like it's a movie stalked by
Scorsese.
Scorsese's like
Rogue
frequent
gallery
collaborator.
of repetitive, stars or whatever.
Yeah.
And
Which
that's
was-
another thing about this film in that era is you don't realize now, but like seeing Catherine O'Hara, which it's like, oh, you would watch SCTV and you'd be a huge fan of SCTV, and then she disappeared, right? And then all of a sudden you see a movie, and it's this movie, and she's in it. It was like the most joyful thing, and it's like nowadays, TV actors and movie actors, they move around, they do all that kind of stuff. At that time, it was just like, oh my God, thank God Catherine O'Hara has a
She's
job.
back,
It's
yeah.
like, you
Yeah,
wouldn't-
and now
you
she
didn't see her for 2 or 3 years, and then it like she appears in this, and it's like, oh, and that's another kind of thing where it's like hipster cool inside, because again, you didn't have that huge internet culture at all. You just
Yep.
you just had these little
Whatever
bits and
happened to
pieces.
them? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then 3 years later, she does Beetlejuice, right? And I think
Yeah.
is that I'm trying to remember. I remember that episode. She ended up like marrying the dude, like the stunt coordinator or something. I can't
She
remember. Like
was
Yeah.
married
Yeah.
to the set design,
Set
right?
design- production designer, that's
production
what it was. Yeah,
designer.
yeah,
What's
yeah,
his
that's
name?
right.
Really famous guy. One of the best production designers. Well, what's his name? I can't remember.
there's a great, and I know we're not talking about the deleted scenes, but since I just got the Blu-ray, I'm gonna talk about the deleted scenes. I guess there's a great little improv bit on the stairway she does. It just shows
Yeah.
like how much it's just like, oh, I could have used a little more of that character. Actually, that was great.
But I feel like if they hadn't have cut that out, it would have been like, why did he even go up?
Yeah, why
there?
did you go upstairs?
From the
Exactly.
apartment? He is so out there
Because he makes a lot of dumb decisions, like or
Oh
just
my God.
like
It was
Oh.
like, there's no way. It's like he would have walked. He would have
yeah,
left.
decisions
Oh,
not guided extremely by logic.
Yeah.
Probably is the nice
So
way to put
I think
that,
it's
right?
good they cut it.
I'm actually really happy that Catherine O'Hara has had a pretty good career comeback, if you will. I
Sure.
mean, there are certain people, like certain creators, who want to try to revive people's careers. And Ryan Murphy is known for doing that with a lot of actresses and actors who we haven't heard of forever and help revitalize their career. But with Catherine O'Hara, she's pretty well known, like in Canada, to say the least. And
CTV alone, Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean,
so like when I found out about Schitt's Creek, I was like, wait, it's the mom from Home Alone. And then I was, watching the movie. I was like, oh my gosh, she's been around even before Beetlejuice.
Well, she's like Best in Show is like one of my favorite comedies of like all time, right? Like I love Best in Show. Waiting for Guffman's great. I mean, all of that. She's a stone badass. So
now Griffin Dunn, he's really not known for much outside of just this film and The American Werewolf.
Those are the big ones. He's been in
he's like a character actor, but like
he's a that guy.
Star,
He's basically one of the people who would be striking right now. Like, oh, you recognize me? You don't know my name? Oh, I'm that guy from that show or from that movie.
Well,
he's in the Madonna movie, if I remember right. I don't know why I remember that, but
he was also. They also brought him in for Secession. He was the therapist that's doing like the group family therapy session with them, and then knocks his teeth out in the pool.
That's right.
Yeah.
He was in that Wes Anderson movie too. Sorry,
pulling
Rick,
people out. No. Yeah, but Succession's been great with that. Peter Riegert, who was in this great movie called Local Hero, like 40 years later,
Local
shows
Hero.
up in Succession.
That's an old episode of ours.
Yeah.
Before Conan.
I wasn't even on the show then.
Yeah, it's BC.
But I love that movie though. Yeah.
Also, this was before because Roseanne Arquette comes from the Arquette family, and this came out in '85. So this was like a year before her sister Patricia would be in Nightmare on Elm Street 3. So the Arquettes were starting to make a bit of an imprint, like in Hollywood.
Yeah. Another movie this kind of reminds me of, not because of like the plot of it or anything, but because of like the kind of detour it takes in somebody's career, like True Romance a little bit. I like the same kind of vibes in the sense of like, I don't know, it's funny that like Tarantino wrote that and then Scorsese directed this, and it feels like it's a departure in both cases from like what their careers had been at that point and would be.
Yeah. Although this also reminded me of Joe versus the Volcano. A bit of that.
What?
It is. I think what you're tapping into is kind of the
it's the malaise
comedy.
of yuppiness.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay.
But like a dark screwball comedy.
I'll allow it.
Flipping that formula of screwball comedy.
It goes
in a very different direction than this movie does, but
Oh, does it? I noticed.
The term for that genre that movies like that are part of is the nightmare yuppie cycle. That's the.
I was gonna say it was in the intro, right? Yeah, you put that in the intro.
So it's a mixture between like classic like screwball comedy and like kind of neo noir things that always has to have obviously like a yuppie at the center of it and be about that kind of nonstop malaise and like boredom of that circle, which this movie does perfectly because there's kind of the underworld aspect to it.
Yeah,
right
well,
there.
there's a little bit of that with like Blue Velvet, right? Where Kyle MacLachlan's character, that's a thing. There's Into the Night, that's a Jeff Goldblum movie. That's like around this John Landis, I think. I can't remember, but anyway. Yeah, there's
who also directed American Werewolf and
yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Miracle Mile. That's kind of an obscure one, but
favorite. That's one of my favorites too. Yeah, definitely. I kind of think of them as similar. Miracle Mile, but Miracle Mile's not as funny.
No, it's it's
good though.
This is, I think, it's such a fine line when you have things that are like dramedies, I guess they call them. Like how do you classify After Hours? Because that's one of the reasons why like people kind of were confused by it. Because it's like, oh, what? This is not.
It was ahead of its time.
Exactly. It's more tonally. It would work more as like again. Other than the fact that you couldn't do like any of it now because like cell phones and all that, but totally it's closer to a movie now.
Yeah. Period piece.
Well, I mean the whole
period piece. Sure, yeah. Well, I mean, again, Good Time is basically millennial After Hours, so that's been proven.
The whole like night where stuff keeps going wrong, I feel like is like a very popular genre. I mean, it's like the formula.
Well, because it's an easy film to shoot too, right? You don't need like huge lavish sets.
Aren't they typically like LA based? A lot of those kind of like bad nights out in the town kind of thing. At least for a minute, and then this one seems unique.
Are you thinking about like, dude, where's my car or something? I'm trying to. I don't. What are you?
Man,
I always think of it as like kind of like a New York thing, but there I guess there is some LA centric ones.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's a few that I'm thinking of. Like, what was it? 2 Days in the Valley, I think it is.
2 Days in the Valley. Sure.
Yeah.
Does that really?
Kinda.
I guess there's like, well,
I don't
no,
think
I
that
guess
great of a film.
I guess
It's
it's
fine.
supposed to be. I guess it's supposed to be New York City, but there's like the Seth Rogen Christmas one. That's like that's when that genre.
Wait, the one with
jumped
Barbara Streisand in it?
No, that's like when I feel like when that genre jumped the shark is when it was Seth. It was like it's Seth Rogen and Joseph Gordon-Levitt and
Oh yeah.
and they're like running around on Christmas or whatever. They're like, it's our last. I feel like that's when that genre is like, all right, we've had way too many like one night with things going wild.
Well, okay, so how about like let's go more obscurest. How about Naked by like Mike Lee, right? Like I don't know if I'm a big Mike Lee fan. I don't know if anyone else on here is.
Man,
That's a
I
brutal
saw
one.
that when it came out. That was wow. How old is that movie?
It's pretty old. It's old. I think it's older than
Barely
most of the
remember it.
panel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on my
I think-
Criterion challenge this year, so I'll try to get to it.
Or Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah. Eyes Wide Shut. It's got that. Yeah.
And
Another
Under the
Christmas-
Silver Lake kind of qualifies even a little
Another
bit.
Christmas movie, you know. Eyes Wide Shut.
Which also LA.
Andrew Garfield's lost his tan, so I'm a little sad about that. So, but whatever.
Let the record show.
Oh, would this be considered one of
Warriors in the
Scorsese's-
chat. Warriors getting some love.
Yeah,
You know, I
Warriors
guess
is,
so.
is the single night movie.
Would
Yeah.
After Hours be considered Scorsese's most underrated film that he's directed?
I think so. I mean, I have to
Yeah.
say, I had a person I worked with, another faculty member who was doing a Scorsese class and did a film series in town here. And I said to him, "Oh, are you going to show After Hours?" And like, "After Hours? What's After Hours?" And this is a film, person, and it's like, and he watched it. I said, "Well, okay, I think it's his best film, but I've been told that there's something wrong with me. I think it's hilarious." And then he watched it and then wrote me back and said, "It was great, but yes, it is correct. There is something wrong with you, because I love it and I find it funny. He did not find it funny, but he thought it was good. But it was, yeah. I think even people who think they love Martin Scorsese and are Scorsese completists, right?
It just gets
don't
left
even
off the
notice
table when they're talking
Yeah.
about it. I mean, because there's like the Dylan movie and like Last Waltz and like the Rolling Thunder Review and all that, but that's like a different category. I think like the only thing I can think of that's kind of been like lost to time in the same way is probably Color of Money, maybe like I don't know, but I like this movie way better than Color of Money.
Yeah, Color of Money. I don't even know if I think I might have boycotted that film.
Yeah, it's
I said, even though it's a Martin Scorsese film, I'm not going to go see it. I think
I just don't find
Mean
Tom
Streets.
Cruise to
I
be-
mean, Mean Streets is kind of like similar, like what? Because he always gets left out of the conversation when people are thinking of like Goodfellas and Casino.
Yeah, I mean, the King of Comedy too. I think is would qualify
Until
as-
Joker came out, where it's like, oh yeah, this is like basically a blatant ripoff of King of Comedy, and people are
Yeah.
like, what's King of
That's
Comedy?
why
I'm
that
like,
was the whole inspiration. That's why they brought Robert De Niro on.
Well,
Yeah,
they were
it's like
trying to
literally-
they were trying to get him. They were trying to get Scorsese to direct it, and he said he would, and then he dropped out at the last second to go film.
Yeah.
Like he was working on The Irishman. But the whole
and then there are
point
all
was
these
that-
think pieces that like the only way you can make a movie for an adult is if you have like a superhero or villain in this case be in it, and blah blah blah, this and
Or
that.
like all
But-
the worries of anarchy happening. With
well,
this,
yeah,
like,
but
every time there's
specifically,
a Joker movie, there's a warning, and I'm like, oh my god.
but
it's
but
not
specifically
2008.
what I liked about that discourse, which was literally I didn't like almost anything about it, is that it brought King of Comedy back into the conversation,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
people rediscover that movie. It's like, oh yeah, this is basically like where a large portion of that film comes from. I mean, it's not like a blatant ripoff, but it's pretty,
But
pretty.
the
And
good
I just have to
news
say,
is
the
sequel
King of
is gonna be
Comedy-
musical.
the Clash are in the King of Comedy, so
That's true. Yeah.
They're like-
Wow.
they like
Yeah.
heckle him on the street. They're like
I
sitting
forgot about
outside
that.
somewhere, and they Mick Jones and Joe Strummer.
the
I haven't seen that in a while. I haven't seen it in a few years. I think Forrest, you just rewatched that, right?
yeah.
Didn't you,
Wait,
like, just rewatch
so
it?
that's the one Martin Scorsese movie that I've always like I need to watch this and haven't, and I finally watched it like a couple days ago, and I enjoyed it. It was different than
You're not going to watch The Aviator? Sorry.
I watched it recently, but that's because I put on.
2004 was a good year for film.
I put on. Thank You for Smoking, and for some reason it played. Like King of Comedy. I'm like, oh man, there's a lot of whatever the comedian's name. in that movie.
Jerry Lewis.
Yeah, Jerry Lewis in this smoking movie. What's going on? I was very confused for a long time.
It was the other
Jerry
movie
Lewis.
playing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Whoa.
all right, okay. I was confused in that you speaking just now. So
Yeah, no. I mean, just imagine me.
yeah.
Sandra Bernhard in the King of Comedy acts the fuck out of that. Like
She's really good.
She's
yeah,
always
very,
usually
very, very close to the line on a rape scene. Like
Mm-hmm.
you know, like as that goes on, she absolutely crushes that whole thing where like she flips from that like kind of flirty, like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing kind of thing, to like screaming about like her parents and how they like, you know, they're like they didn't understand her or something, and then she goes right back to like, you know, like trying to kiss him through the tape. I feel like that's like one of the best acted scenes that Scorsese's gotten out of any out of anybody.
I love that we're debating like what's Scorsese's most underrated film. That's gonna be a long clip for you, Forrest.
So this is another part of the Fran Lebowitz thing. They're talking about how everything's dangerous in this movie.
Danger.
And I thought that's cool. You know,
Danger Zone.
well, in the wake of
Wrong
you know
movie.
talking about Scorsese talking about Beau is Afraid is kind of interesting, because that's a movie where like that's kind of dialed up to like a 10, right? Like everything is super fucking dangerous because you're in the mind of like someone with so much anxiety that you know that you're affected by it.
Everything that he touches in the movie becomes dangerous. And so even the keys are dangerous.
Some people would put them like in a puppet, like or a doll's head or something like that.
Yeah.
You know,
Like a decapitated doll.
Right.
And that's the key. I mean, already I'm feeling funny about going into the place.
listen, he's always kind of polite.
Well, yeah.
You know, he's always like more polite than most men in that era would have been. And in that way, it makes it kind of contemporary where he's afraid, I don't want to be misconstrued.
Right.
Like, you know,
Or
may I?
like, may I?
Can
Or
I?
Can
Sure
I
you
invite
agree?
you? Can I invite you to leave?
Yes. I mean, and when I was watching that, I thought that is more now.
Yeah.
You know, than my memory of then.
Well, I like that his character was that way then, because he wasn't meant to be there in the first place.
Right. And that proves it.
It
Because
really
he's
proves
always
it.
like, you know, I mean, to me, that proves it.
That's what I liked about Paul, because he tried to be reasonable. But there's no such thing as that kind of reason, really, especially down there, you know.
Because it has no one knows what you're doing.
That's right. For all they know, he could be up to
Right.
something.
That's right.
And also, that's why he becomes the guy that they think has been robbing the apartments.
And he's constantly misjudged.
Yes.
This the guy?
Yeah.
He meets up with Horst, Will Patton. He sees the rope on Linda. And in my mind, he doesn't belong there. He's intruding. They're not crazy. He doesn't belong anywhere down there with those people.
No, that's true. Yeah.
None of them. You walk in a room and people are in there, and all of a sudden they stop talking. Well, they're talking about you. Obviously.
Yeah. That's where they stop.
That's why they stop. The whole movie is that moment. That's what the movie is.
I mean, Paul Hackett believed people would help him because he needed them to.
Yeah.
Belief always comes from desperation.
Desperation. That was the
Okay.
other thing I told Griffin. At one point, he was begging John Hurd to give him the keys or whatever, and I said, "I'm not going to stop shooting until you convince me you need those keys, because I don't believe it yet." Now he was great, and he did it. I said, you really, really need them, and you need him to give them to you. You know, it's almost like an 18th century novel where, or picaresque novel where crazy things happen, and it's Lawrence Stern or Fielding or that sort of thing, where it's heightened in a way. When you look at the film, you have to be open to playing the game. So if you say, well, he could have gone off the corner, he could have walked uptown, you're not playing the game.
Yes,
And-
also, you're not in it. You're outside of it.
You're outside of it.
You know, I mean,
Go in it.
yeah, if you're in it, you do feel it.
Yeah.
I think.
I forgot about that. Gets stuck in the hair. It's so great.
It was a problem back then, wasn't it?
So there's a story about the keys.
Real quick, I think it's a great observation, though, that a lot of people, the commentary on this, why is he doing all this stuff? Because he's like in the moment of like this escalating night where he's getting like, he's like lack of sleep and just like, elevated adrenaline the entire time. Like, it's really easy to be like, if it was me, I simply would have walked home. All right, fine. good for you. But like, that's not the point. The point is this movie is like an escalation of a certain.
It'd be a
type of
boring movie if you just walked home.
Yeah.
But somebody did the math. That walk is at least an hour and a half, hour 45
In the
from
rain.
the two locations.
Yeah, like during like a hard rainstorm too, and it's
Right,
like,
yeah.
okay, come on, man. All right, sure. With no umbrella or raincoat or nothing.
So this is Griffin.
And he
Dunn.
thinks he's gonna get laid too. Let's be clear about that.
Yeah.
That's a very important factor that we've not addressed yet.
She could have been faking her death. No. This is Griffin Dunn talking about the process of shooting the keys, and like on a bungee cord that almost like.
Yeah, this is. I found this very compelling, very, very interesting. Like, because it was sort of like, you think about things with like modern filmmaking, and like there's a million ways you could do it now, right? Do like a drone shot
put a
or
GoPro
something,
on
whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Who cares? But this is some real frontier medicine, like as they say.
So was it a technically challenging shoot?
Well, it was I think the lowest budgeted movie Marty had made, certainly since Mean Streets. And that was, the confines of of making the movie, as he was in a bit of a director's jail, and he was important to him to prove that he could prove to others that he could make a picture for a price. And so there was a union. We couldn't even afford an IA union. There was for smaller movies, there was a union then called NABIT. And we crewed up out of that. But out of that crew, well, one of the people we turned Marty on to was who shot Amy said our previous movie, Baby It's You, that John Sayles directed, was Michael Ballhaus. That was it. That was Michael's first movie in America, having worked with Fassbender so many years. And so we introduced them, and we know that was a long collaboration. And out of NABIT came the costume designer, and I've still got a little COVID brain, so forgive me. I can't. I'm just blanking on her name. But anyway, they went on to do like 5 movies afterwards. He did everything from the Edith Wharton to movie he did to Age of Innocence. Rita is her first name, by the way. Anyway, so he met and established relations with people through this movie that he went on to work with on many other movies. But he also shot-listed the entire movie before we shot it. And there would be drawings of what the shots would be on the back of every call page. So we are on the call sheet. So the crew always knew what they were going to be shooting. They knew exactly what equipment to have on the truck. They knew they didn't even need to be told what shot to set up for next. So it was very, very smooth, even though the camera work was quite complicated. There were tracks all over the place. The camera never stopped moving. And if I wasn't running down the street, I was running down hallways and around corners. And there was only one Steadicam shot, the final shot in the movie. All the rest was all on tracks. So I would be running and I'd have to always step over the tracks and then round back around. So it was kind of a bit of a ballet act for me as well.
What about that shot when Linda Fiorentino throws the keys down to you?
That shot, my cousin Tony Dunn was the key grip on the movie, and
key grip. I get
he
it.
had designed to get that shot. He had designed the camera to be held by bungee cords, and it would literally they dropped it out the window from that actual thing, and it would come toward me holding up. And the idea was it was going to bounce, get very close to my face, and then fly back up. They actually went ahead with this. I stood under the bungee cord. Thank God the bungee cord broke as it hit before it could hit my face and landed on the pavement. And people went, oh my God, what? My cousin almost had me killed.
I think he even said like he was ready for a second take too, if I remember correctly on the Again, the Criterion collection.
Scorsese said,
The Dunn family, ladies and gentlemen.
What was that, Rick?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, he was ready to go for another one, and Scorsese was like,
It's
"No,
like,
maybe let's just do
you
one."
might die. That might break.
Yeah, like, I know it hasn't come out yet, but there's going to be a movie called Hellraiser 3, and you're going to be the camera guy in that film if we do a second take.
And I love that one of these features, it actually shows like the shot list that he has, that he's talking about, where it's like literally just every single shot's like meticulously planned out, which is kind of to be clear, that's an atypical thing to give to actors. Like that's not a thing that normally happens when you're seeing a screenplays. You don't see that.
Well, it's not a thing that usually happens with Scorsese's work.
Marty, I call him Marty. I don't know.
Because he was like the last few projects he had, the price of it was like ballooning out every single time.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so he was getting known as one of those, and you don't want to be known as one of those guys that can't, film to a budget. As kind of Hollywood budgets are getting tighter, it's no longer, the age of like New Hollywood, where it's like, oh, go out there with a camera. Like they used to tell me in college, like go out there with a camera and get something, and like, you know what I mean, like come on back and make sure you got something. Like no, like this is more of a regimented thing, and in order to survive in that new era of Hollywood, where things are regimented, like he kind of was trying to show, like, this is almost like a resume film. Like he's like, see, I can keep things under budget. Yeah. Keep things all planned out meticulously. I'm not.
Now let me make my goddamn Jesus movie. Thank you.
Well, it's kind of the director's version of when like an actress is known as like being difficult on set, right? Like,
which means she has opinions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because Heaven's Gate came out.
Yeah. Heaven's Gate. Yeah. Those 70s guys, they all kind of had their blowouts. One from the heart. Coppola's. One from the heart. It's. I'm trying to remember what Brian De Palma's blowout was. It's like they all
blowout?
That blowout. Well, maybe it was blowout actually. That's
actually.
It was totally unintentional, but it might have been that because that didn't do that well. And it had a star in it. But I feel like blowout is. But they all had these big budget films, and then Hollywood was changing, and then they all kind of blew it in a way. But they spent a huge amount of money and then didn't have hits, and then everything collapsed. So Coppola was doing. What is it called? Rumblefish and
Rumblefish. Yeah, one from the heart. And,
sometimes I forget Francis Ford Coppola directed the Dracula movie.
Yeah. Well, that was when he came back. Kind of, he started getting more money, but it was like he had his tiny films too. And
well, Apocalypse Now came out 1 year before Heaven's Gate.
Yeah,
because Apocalypse Now was 1979. He was like, if you've ever watched that the documentary, like Heart of Darkness or whatever, where he was taking like liens out on his house.
Oh yeah,
like, he was in fucking like the Philippines because they were shooting in the Philippines, as Oliver Stone did later, kind of doing the exact same kind of shoot with or trying to with Platoon. Like he was in the Philippines trying to take like military equipment. He was taking liens out on his house. His wife was like going back and forth from the Philippines to America to like talk to like mortgage people. He was like out in the jungle. That was 1 year before Heaven's Gate kind of crashed the whole party. But I have to believe that like Apocalypse Now, which he was funding himself, so it wasn't like the studios being like, well, I mean, it was the studios pulling their hair out and like screaming, but like not in the same way that a fully funded by the studios film would have been.
Yeah. Well, and it's few years earlier, and I mentioned One from the Heart, by the way, also with Terry Garr.
Right.
But that's like made like at the time, it's like it was like $26 million movie, and it made like didn't even like clear like $1 million. Like it was like
I don't even think it lasted a week or two in the theater.
No, it was it was like
they all lost it. And that's the thing about Apocalypse Now too. It was not that big of a success when it initially came out. It was kind of viewed as a halfway thing. Heaven's Gate definitely was kind of the blow up. There's a great book called Final Cut, which is all about just how that spun out of control, and kind of put the nail in the coffin for that era of these 70s filmmakers being able to get anything, get any kind of budget.
I like that Scorsese in After Hours like put out all the shot composition, because to me some of it seems like almost an homage, but almost kind of a piss take on Hitchcock. Like there's stuff that's like straight up like, oh, that's like from Marnie. and even the score, the Howard Shore score kind of reminds me of like classic Hitchcock stuff, and it's sort of like his sort of like take on that. Anyone else have feelings?
And he goes into it with in the Fran Lebowitz conversation. He kind of goes into like that classic kind of over the top Hitchcock thing. I don't remember if it's in another one of the clips that I grabbed for this, but he talks about the over the top, like Hitchcock is like, listen, you have to be able to sell this, and the audience has to be immersed in it. As long as the audience stays immersed in it, as long as like that emotional core, I guess, resonates, you can sell them on pretty much anything. But the second that kind of slips away, they're going to go home and they're going to be, getting a sandwich or something in the fridge and be like, I don't think that this could have actually happened in the movie, and this couldn't have actually happened. Well, now I feel like our line for that, our threshold is so fucking thin. We have like Neil deGrasse Tyson now. So to be like, well, actually the science doesn't quite line up in this.
Like, shut up. But, nobody cares.
Let us enjoy the movie.
but you have that, like, he's thinking through that, and I think very inspired by Hitchcock in that sense, because
I mean, but in a way that's honoring it, but also sort of like, but check this out. I can do it too.
And I think it goes back to that idea of screwball comedy, because I love the movie What's Up, Doc, but it is really kind of just a lift of classic, screwball comedies, whereas what Scorsese does in this is he uses all of the elements, and he talks about it in the commentary track about these screwball comedies, but he uses all those elements but creates something unique with them, and that's I'm the Tarantino problem, like where it becomes Xeroxing or lifting, as opposed to creating some kind of synthesis from your influences. And that's what I like about Scorsese a lot of times, is he's definitely referencing Hitchcock, or he's inspired by it, or screwball comedies, but he's messing around with those bits and pieces and building something new, as opposed to just kind of lifting stuff.
And it's, I mean, because there's, but then it's funny to begin to see something like A Beau Was Afraid, where it's sort of like, oh no, that's definitely like takes massive influence from this, but like only the super stressful parts. Right, like seeing bits and pieces of it being like cannibalized, and like even in Uncut Gems too, same deal, right? But again, that's definitely more of a hell of his own making for that film. But like, it's interesting to me that like the screwball comedy is like a streaming television show now, right? We just don't see them as movies. We talked about this with Kindler on the Barb and Star episode. It's just you don't see a lot of tentpole like comedies that are like in that vein. Like probably the last successful one was maybe Bridesmaids. I don't know. Like I can't think of one that really fits. And that's a shame, because I think that that's probably one of my like more favorite genres. And definitely like as much as I love like the the Wim Wenders stuff and like a crying lonely child, blah blah blah, all that stuff. I love that too. But it is nice to laugh once in a while, isn't it? I mean, even if it's at like, someone's expense.
Yeah.
Well, what this movie does, I think that Beau Was Afraid very much does not do, is this movie lulls you into like over and over again, right? Like you're kind of lulled into these scenes. I think like the diner scene when he first goes there is a great example, and it's incredibly Scorsese. Like it's that because he walks in and they're playing like the old R&B music from like the 50s or whatever, like the kind of stuff that he would play in Mean Streets, and like there's kind of the scene and he's kind of getting his bearings, and it's almost like this is an oasis in the thing right before it just hits you right back to the exact same
like a dump truck, just like
it feels like a lot of this movie almost feels like he's walking into these Norman Rockwell paintings almost, but like
there's a story, but you're walking in. Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but you're like kind of, I think where you're going with this, you're dropping into a bigger story, but you're only seeing part of it. Like the whole thing with Dick Miller's character, right? And you're like, well, okay, clearly him and the Rosanna Arquette character, like they know each other, like, and it's, and he also gets to say the titular line, which of course is always a boon. But like you get, it's like, no, there's like, this is a fully realized person that like goes to this diner and has conversations with this dude, and like he's probably seen her out with like the other guy and this and that, and it's just everything is like this river of experience, and he's coming in honestly as an unwelcome outsider often, like or like partially welcome or hesitantly welcome. Like Linda Fiorentina, like definitely like whatever, you're here. Yeah, well, okay, like you can help out with this paper machine. What? Oh, okay, sure.
And she's like on the phone with her, like, come on, come back. Like,
yeah,
you just let some random guy into my my studio. I also think, I mean, this movie is kind of a masterpiece in what would kind of become like NPC dialogue, like
and all the side quests and all that. Yeah, absolutely.
Ice cream so good. Ice cream so good.
Yeah, well,
gang.
It's just every conversation he has is with a person that's doing something else in their own life.
Yeah, like that whole the thing with the bartender, right? Where's like oh, there's been this crime wave recently. I don't know if I turned the alarm on. I sure wish someone would go to my apartment and do it for me.
And it's like side quests every single time he goes on a side quest. Then he sees the sculpture and like completely forgets about he's distracted by yet another side quest.
Yeah. Like, hey, yeah.
That reminds me of Existence, Cronenberg. Where it's literally a game, kind of mechanics, and you don't understand. Yeah, the actors are they are NPCs, right? They're playing NPCs in a way, right?
With controllers that have orifices, of course, because it's Cronenberg.
Right, yeah, with that added bonus.
Cronenberg.
This movie though, it's something like Final Fantasy or something, like one of those games where you're kind of walking through like a village, but it's like but it's like Soho, but it's that version of it where it's like everybody
Final
is kind
Fantasy
of
Soho edition.
Hey, like you have to go up to the person, like press A or whatever to like get them to speak. They're not gonna, and then they have like a exclamation.
Yeah, they're just like randomly walking around and like blocking you from getting into the end, even though like you're down to 1 hit point.
Yeah, there's like a decision tree of how you can react, and then he always picks the wrong one, basically.
Yeah, well, also like it's the thing like Terry Garr having like the thing where she's having the fucking existential crisis about her job and is like, help me, like I need to quit my job, and then she runs back up to him. She's like, I quit my job, and it's just like she's having her own night, her own like problems.
Yeah, it's got nothing to do with him. Yeah.
And I think it hits its peak when with Catherine O'Hara.
And I think she just wanted some dick too, like
Yeah, but I think it hits its peak with Catherine O'Hara when he's trying to have the conversation about his night being terrible,
and she's just having a different conversation entirely. That's so hilarious.
They're not on the same wavelength right now. Like, what's going on here?
She's like, yes, I drive an ice cream truck, but that also means that I have a Class D license in New York State, which is that also means I have a Class D license in New York State, which is okay, but driving an ice cream truck, you think that I wouldn't do that, or that that it would suck, but it actually is. And he's like trying to have his own.
But he doesn't even feign interest in what she's saying. He's like, no, I think you're mistaken. I was complaining about my problems. It's basically what he says, which is again doubling down on dickery at every moment in time, right? Like low grade dickery, affable dickery, but dickery nonetheless.
Yeah,
I love the guy that's like, I've never done this before, but he's standing on the corner and it seems like he has done this before. Like it seems like he's looking to have like a gay experience, and he's like, oh, all right, you can come to my apartment. We can do this, but there's some things I won't do. He's like, I'm just telling you now, there's some things I won't do. And
no feet stuff, no foot stuff. Sorry.
The thing about like not listening or not communicating, that's my the partner Rose's kind of basic single synopsis of the film is just basically he doesn't listen to, he's being punished for not listening to people. So right at the beginning when he doesn't listen to Bronson Pinchot, and it's all about how he doesn't listen to people, and this is his punishment.
And I just want to note that it took us an hour and 15 minutes before he brought up Bronson Pinchot, so
I had it on my list.
So if we're bringing up Bronson Pinchot, we got to talk about The Office and the fact that like I think this ending is so perfect, and I was astounded to learn very, very recently on this rewatch that it was like, oh yeah, he didn't have an ending for this. Yeah. And like some of the proposed endings, it was like, no, that's terrible. Don't do that. That's awful.
Birth.
Yeah, I was like, no, like that's
the West Side Highway.
No. Yeah, that's bad. That's a bad idea.
Well, but like the whole thing there is that they didn't think that they could just do this as a self-contained unit, right? Like the original idea was this ending, and it was like, well, I had this ending where he falls out of the truck and he's right back at his office again, just kind of miraculously, and it's like the nonstop labyrinth that he's kind of and they have this like the moment where like the mouse hits the like the mouse trap or whatever that she has surrounding her beds. Like it's the same kind of thing. Like he's the mouse in this nonstop labyrinth that he's kind of stuck, trying to do a decision tree and so they're like, well, I don't think that we could pull that off because, maybe that would be too far. Maybe people would, oh, he just happens to go to his office. But if you're already kind of in this situation that's so absurdist and so comedic and like you're already in this kind of like we've bought it up to this point. Like, of course, he arrives back at his office, and it's this self-contained story, right? Like, that's the only way that this movie can end.
Well, but it wasn't a random suggestion. It was Michael Powell.
Yeah, Michael Powell.
Who was like, for the cinephiles in the audience, which you can only imagine there are a few, like the Red Shoes, Black Narcissus, Peeping Tom.
Tom, yeah.
Jesus, like that, like, him and, was it Pressburger, right? Emmerich Pressburger. Just like a real like notable filmmaker from a different era, right? He was from an earlier era for sure, but like
definitely, yeah.
I think he was just like he should finish up back at work, and then everyone's like, no.
Yeah, Scorsese was even like, no, that's stupid, and that's like, oh, okay, the guy, who's been making movies for 50 years.
Just dismiss him outright, sure. And then they're like, maybe he should.
Well, the only way that this movie possibly works.
Hey, guys had a great idea. She ended up at work.
He's the only way that this movie possibly works is if it's a self-contained like labyrinth, right? Like if he gets to the end of it and he's right back at the beginning again, and he's kind of just undergone this whole thing where there's only one entrance and one exit. That's the only way that this works.
Well, and I love that it ends with those shots where it's kind of like the sweeping. I don't remember the exact name of it, but it ends with like everything about that idiot is like this could not possibly have ended any other, because the whole time you're like, okay, he's now in the statue. There's a mob looking for him. Like where could he possibly go? It's like it's insane.
I mean, the thing is also it's the Wizard of Oz. Like they're referencing the Wizard of Oz throughout it, and it's like that's kind of his arriving back
film inspired by the Wizard of Oz.
That's and I would like to hand it to us for going the entire show and not mentioning the Surrender Dorothy soliloquy.
Well, I had that. I had it in the intro.
Everyone did, but me.
But
which is amazing, but also like so Wizard of Oz, right? It's going back to the black and white. It's going back. It's a reset. It's going back to the beginning of the narrative.
And it's the same kind of. I mean, in Oz, right? Like there's the gates, and he goes in and out of the golden gates, and that's like his back to Kansas, I guess, thing.
Back to being a literal word processor, because that was the name of that job. That's like what? Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I took in high school, I took computers was the name of the class, and typing. And I think it was the last year that they had typing as like an elective. But I took computers, amazing, and typing. And those are
called, when I took it, it was just called typing.
Yeah.
We didn't even, and I was one of two people who was there because I used computers. Everybody else was learning how to do secretarial work.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like, hey, I've got 72 words per minute. Oh, okay, great.
We had to do all that.
And so the mob scene, right, which I love, and I forget the escalation of the mob scene with Terry Garrick putting up the flyers, and it being a callback to her saying like, "Oh, I can get all these free copies at my job," where it's like, it's all there.
Sketching him, and it works at the coffee shop.
She's sketching him. She's mentioned it's all, and you're like,
I mean, it's like literally like every line of dialogue of Chekhov's something. That happens to be Chekhov's copier.
Yeah, and then the mob's like riding on the Mr. Softy truck and that's very much like, I feel like that's another Beau is Afraid-ism for that too, where you just see this like escalation of things is getting more and more nuts as time goes on.
I think that's my favorite moment, the Chekhov's hamburger, right? Where he orders the hamburger, and then like 15, 20 minutes later, the guy,
and he comes over, puts it down on the thing. They should call it hamburger.
That's my favorite moment. Yeah.
It's like you're going slightly mad as the night progresses.
Well, and also it shows that there's, it may seem tossed off and extemporaneous for him, But there's repercussions to all of these actions, and almost everything has to do because of something with his own actions and his own, again, lack of interest in what the other people that he interacts with are actually saying or need, just how it fits with his immediate need at that immediate moment. But the way it works is that he's not outright like a total, like, just the worst person in the world.
No. Yeah. He's just, I think that's what's
He's
interesting about the interview with, that we watched where he Scorsese is saying, Fran Lebowitz is saying, oh, he's nice and, but he just doesn't belong there. Scorsese's saying he just doesn't belong there. And that's what it is. It's like he's just making mistakes. He's going places he shouldn't go, like even jumping over the turnstile. It's like something he would never do, has never done before, but he does it, and then the cops
busted.
And it's the same thing. It's like, oh, I'm going to dine
later.
and crash. I'm going to order some food, not even dine, and then run out, and then it's like, oh, I'm going to get punished for that. It's like he's doing things against his core nature, and every step of the way he's being punished, which makes me believe that's probably why I have a demented attachment to this movie, because I do feel like that's a lot of my interactions where it's just like, oh, this is going to be misinterpreted, or any interaction with people has the potential of disaster, right? It's like, oh, this could be fine, but it could just spin off into something terrible.
It could be fraught with danger at the same time. I mean, Curb Your Enthusiasm, right? That's the entire crux of that show.
Right.
And I also like the fact that, like, he's I mean, the actor's charismatic and likable enough and relatable enough. Like you can relate to him, but you also kind of dislike him as a human being, like as the movie goes on, because he's just kind of a little shit.
Well, he just doesn't have a lot of interest in others. Or he does have interest in others. He doesn't have a lot of interest in the fundamental
it's like
humanity
very self-motivated.
of others.
like that's the whole thing, is like it's all about him. And like but it's also part of like the 80s. I mean, like that is like the egocentrism. But I think looking back at it now makes him a bit of an unlikable character, but somehow it works because he's also vulnerable and relatable at the same time.
And one of the most egregious examples of him not doing that, though, is that last exchange with Rosanna Arquette's character, though, where he just really, like, snaps. It's very funny, the thing about the paperweights. I got these papers flying around at home. I need it right now. It's
papers everywhere.
But the fact that, like, the ramifications of that, he finds out at the bar. Like it was like, because he's thinking about an academic concern, how it affects him that this woman is dead. And by the way, I think the putting the signs up is hilarious.
And of course, Chekhov's paperweight does come back towards the end there.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. But then, like, you get to see, like, the emotional involvement of the boyfriend, like, having a very natural human reaction, and takes that and the empathetic leather daddy, for him to put it in a frame of reference that it matters, and it's that's how deep down this, like, crazed rabbit hole that he is. That, again, people might ascribe to, like, drugs. It was mostly just like an exhaustion and some degree of bohemian narcissism, tourism. Really, because it's not his world. That's what we keep coming
but
back
like
to.
Everybody in the world is actually really nice. Like
they're all great, and they all have a rich life that has nothing to do with him. Maybe it involves being tied up. It's none of your business, Like, I mean,
you do you, boo.
Yeah, exactly. What is it, Horst? Right?
Yeah, Horst.
Lack of discipline.
Worcestershire sauce. No.
He's a great piano player. Okay, cool. Like, and like the whole thing where, first of all, by the way, I forgot it was Bad Brains playing at the club, and I also. Which is great, because it's like, if you're going to have, like, anything that shows like that, like, oh, something crazy's happening. It's like Pay to Come by Bad Brains. Great.
Pitch perfect. I'm sometimes I get a little annoyed by Scorsese's choice in music, because it's always very nostalgic to his childhood.
Yeah, and for every Layla in Goodfellas, there's one like, oh, okay, fine, too.
As someone who likes all that music, I don't mind it.
No, I mean,
I'm not saying it's bad. It's just it's always the same trough he's drinking from, and so it was really refreshing to have a great score. Which Scorsese tends not to do a lot with scores. Howard
Shore is really good work.
Part of his name. I mean, his first part of his name is Scorsese, and he doesn't have scores in his movies.
It's not his deal, yeah.
But you know, the other thing is that a lot of his films does have very like 50s nostalgic songs and very specific of that era, and it's played throughout this one. So like when Bad Brain shows up, it's so perfect.
Well, and it's seen as a culture clash, and it is, and it works because of that. But it's also, again, if you're coming up from a world where like that's your music, and it's like, oh well, yeah, he's the interloper. He's to come to the punk rock. It's Mohawk Night. You don't know it's Mohawk Night?
Yeah.
And then you have that
Mohawk Night at my house.
Right, exactly. And you have that great
my kids are
cameo.
tired of it, let me tell you.
You have that great cameo of Scorsese in the Russian.
Oh yeah, with the spotlight. Yeah, in the Russian army uniform. Yeah.
Which isn't strictly necessary, but is delightful nonetheless.
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah, it's and well, and there's all kinds of, again, talking about well, and I also love that, if I remember right, for the billing in the on the front of it, that the oh god, I can't remember her name right now. Verna Bloom, right?
Verna Bloom, yeah.
Who again, for people that don't know, and I think a lot of people haven't seen this film, maybe they're watching this. High Plains Drifter. I mean, like Animal House is probably the more recent one, but it's like High Plains Drifter. Holy crap!
Also, Medium Cool. I mean,
Medium Cool. Yep.
An amazing film and an important film, and and that's what I'm thinking about, like how, using actors that kind of had fallen by the wayside, and just the fact that like Robert Forster was in Medium Cool, and then Tarantino, revitalizes Robert Forster, and it's those kind of patterns. But yeah, Medium Cool, Haskell Wexler's film.
And it's and she's total badass actress, like but again was kind of seen as being from a different era at that point, other than being like whatever the dean's dean's wife in Animal House. I haven't seen Animal House in so long.
Yeah, she's the dean's wife that is at the grocery store and is
right. Well, but like I like that when you're introduced to her character, it's like, oh no, there's a whole like lived in experience of like like what's her movie like that's happening while this is going on. This is nuts, like you could like just follow her around, like why is it, what's happening here? And that song Is That All There Is? Yeah,
is
such amazing.
It's such a like
great
a
song.
Yeah, it's a great song, but it's so different than anything else. I feel like that was released during that time period, right? Like it's the one. I mean, well, I guess the only other song I can really compare it to is Frank Sinatra singing. Frank Sinatra has that one song where he's
well, what's well, around that time, I'm trying to remember when was that Rick, you might know this. That David Bowie and Mick Jagger
Dancing in the Streets.
Yeah. When was that? Because it was sort of like
85, wasn't it?
That was a collab, to say the least.
Well, but like
with cocaine,
anything,
like it's a trio.
It's the sound of cocaine, yes.
Yeah, that Peggy Lee song reminds me of "That's Life." I guess is the only other one I can really think of.
Yes.
Frank Sinatra song. Like,
well, there was a big hit with a remake of the Locomotion too. Not the Kylie Minogue version, but
Eva.
The Michigan band.
Yeah, I'm completely blanking on the
Holy cow!
Yeah, this is like the worst quiz show ever. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah. Grand Funk Railroad.
Yeah, right. So if you heard those where I'm getting at with that, if you good work. If you heard with a song like that, it was in this recontextualized like modern context. So to have it be like the stripped down like super. Perfect song for that tableau of like this lonely scene and this empty club that has a bar.
As we were talking about, so I do like Fly Into a Rage when like needle drops or music is used in an inappropriate era, but why I don't fly. So like I Fly Into a Rage in Goodfellas when Robert De Niro's walking through the bar in like 1971 and Sunshine of Your Love is playing. And I'm like, okay, that's 5 years off, right? And I get really angry and my family sends me out of the room, right? But in this movie,
Steve attitude.
I don't get upset.
Henry and Karen are walking through the Copacabana or whatever. Like that's
Yeah.
the only good use of it.
And so
I mean, it's a jam. Don't get me wrong, but it is
it's
like
not
not
all there is. It makes
Yeah.
sense with Verna Bloom, and it is like because that's music of her era, and then with Terry Garr playing the Monkees and Joni Mitchell, it all makes sense because of her character, and so he's able to get those, sort of nostalgic. Somebody wrote boomer nostalgia soundtrack needle drops into the movie, but it works within the context because.
Don't get me started on needle drops.
Yeah, it's not like
tangent.
what does Tarantino do in Inglourious Bastards that drives me crazy? Cat people, right?
Or David Ayer in the first Suicide Squad movie. Like, why are there songs every 2 minutes?
Yeah, that kind of stuff drives me crazy, but it works in this film. Yeah, and is
You got to get Anthony Fantano out here and beat him in the street for all those needle drops.
But it is like, I mean, well, the good example of it is something like Baby Driver, right, where it's like integrated into like the filmmaking, as definitionally like the music.
Or
if the music's not
Guardians
there,
of the Galaxy.
Sure, yeah, sure, yeah. I mean,
James
like
Gunn knows how to use music properly.
Yeah,
but like I do. Like, okay, what do we? There's Elvis. I really don't want to talk about I hate Baz Luhrmann. Y'all know this. We didn't cover Elvis on Oscars.
Why?
I like Moulin Rouge, and that's about as Baz Luhrmann I like.
I don't like any Baz Luhrmann. I think he's a hack and an overrated hack at that.
He's white?
Yep. But the thing that like drove me crazy, other than all of it, especially the first 45 minutes of it, is when they start doing like the needle drops where it's like, oh, it's the Elvis music like mixed with like, the
Doja Cat.
I was like, come on. Like I actually
that fucking
I was starting to get really angry.
That's when I turned it off. I turned it off after that scene because I was like, no, you're not doing a Hound Dog fucking hip hop remix. No,
that's why I skipped it. I'm just like, I can't.
I paid like $6.99 to rent it or whatever.
I would ask for my money back from whatever service that was because it was garbage.
And then I was like, all right, I'm just chucking the $7.
But I got good news though. There's gonna be a movie about Priscilla's relation with Elvis, which Elvis's estate's not happy about.
Oh,
but Priscilla's excited about it. I'm like, oh, are you finally gonna admit that you were groomed by a 24-year-old when you were 14, Priscilla? I'm like, is that the movie we're getting? Because I hope so.
Just saw the preview. It's Sofia Coppola's movie.
Yeah, and everyone's like, why her? I'm like, she always does these types of films about his female historical.
Yeah, and as long as it doesn't involve class, it's fine. Sofia Coppola's good director.
Right, exactly.
Or she's not acting in it.
Well, sure.
Well. But
anyway, the only reason I even evoked that horrible Baz Luhrmann movie is just because it was like that's an example of how not to do it, and I think again that all there is, and it's a perfect example of how to do it because it's like again think about where it is in the movie and where he is in this endless night that like also it's not just like for her, it's also like oh no, this is like kind of like a bit of a level set for him as well, and which. Like the mob showing up immediately afterwards wouldn't work. You need that kind of breaker in between, that like break in the antics.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that I mean, talking earlier about how this is kind of a very strung out version of Soho, right? Like a version of Soho that's fading into dust, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing really solidifies that symbolically. Then this woman, kind of this aged woman who's aging out of that era, right? Like living at the bottom of. The basement or whatever of this like Club Berlin place, which probably fucking sucks to live at because it's probably loud as fuck on Mohawk night every time you're trying to sleep. You're like, man, Mohawk night again.
Not again.
But it's this, there's something very cobwebbed almost about it, right? Like it's not strung out the way that these characters really are, where they're running around the streets and it's like you can tell that this world's been too lived in. It's almost like this is the last like real bohemian kind of fading away into nothing in the basement of this in the basement of Club Berlin.
By the way, she was 47 in this movie.
As I said, no.
I'm turning 46 in December. It's like, but we all know it's different standards for actresses than it is for actors, isn't it?
Yeah, you literally, Conan, if you at 46 can totally have like a female lead at like 21, and it's okay.
Yeah, patriarchy rules.
She didn't actually pass away until 2019. She was 80.
Oh wow!
I mean, look at Oppenheimer. Everyone's like, "Oh, Florence Pugh and Cillian Murphy. That age difference is it's uncomfortable." And I'm like,
That's normal.
Who cares?
Wait till you hear about every other movie.
Why is it just this movie you're mad about?
Yeah,
Among
this is what
also,
you-
too, there was an age difference between him and his mistress anyway, so who gives a fuck?
Cillian Murphy kind of looks like a vampire, so I feel like he's kind of timeless anyway.
I love Cillian.
He's got like
His accent,
he's got the face and the pallor of like a vampire that's lived here for like 1,000
Because
years.
he's Irish, and Irish people just look like that.
I think he's one of those guys that like I think he's getting like better, he's getting more interesting looking as he gets older.
Yes.
Yeah, very
You know
much
what
like
I mean?
meanwhile, Matt Mikkelsen looks the same.
Yeah.
A real vampire, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Because he was like a watered down what's his face? Benedict Cumberbatch when he was younger. And you know, like Benedict
They get
Cumberbatch
better
came on
looking
the
as they get
scene.
older, which
and
is
it's just like, you know, everybody kind of forgot about him in Hollywood. Now he's kind of back, which I'm glad to see because I like him as an actor.
we are so back.
Well, I love that. I love that they took the Peaky Blinders scene where Cillian Murphy is like walking through the bar and he's like, "No fighting, no fighting, no fighting," and everybody. I love that people turned that into a meme for a little while. And it was
Or the one where he's got a
it was
gun to his head.
It was like things you liked, there's like no fight, like, you know, it was always like these different groupings of people that like have to get along or something like that.
I just always saw the socialist one. That's the only one I've ever seen.
Yeah,
it's a good, you know what? It's a good show. I assumed it was going to be, I think, a lot less smart than it was, but I enjoyed it. Yeah. I think I assumed it was going to be Prohibition, Sons of Anarchy.
I got that feeling too, but
And it's not what it is.
Irish
It's not. It's
mob.
better than that. And like it's you know, it's good. It's good.
There's a little bit of that vibe in Boardwalk Empire, which is another, I mean, the Scorsese show.
Yep. But getting back to After Hours, I think that like when there's the so that the paper mache, the screaming guy, where it's like, oh, it's like that other piece of art. Like the guy, he's like yelling or something. I can, like what is it called again? You know,
holler.
But again, talking about Chekhov's gun, right? That's like Chekhov's paper mache that like it plays into place well, and like later on where he's like, I gotta escape, they're coming for me, and he's like, hold on, I got an idea. It's it's awesome.
Well, it also creates a direct link between Kiki Bridges and that older woman, right? Like, because she's kind of what Kiki Bridges would inevitably morph into, you know, in I guess probably like 10 years, but since, you know, Verna Bloom was only like 48, but or 47 or whatever, but like, you know, that same kind of through line between like this artist creating the same kind of paper mache things in this tiny little fucking basement instead of like the loft owned by, you know, her, like owned by Marcy. I keep wanting to call her Marsha because he screams like Marcy, and I keep in my head Marsha. But Marcy's like husband's, you know, apartment that they're probably living at pretty much for free, like.
Yeah, but I think that like it works as because it gets to the point of like the mob's just it's escalating. They think he's the thief. They think like, you know, he's like, you know, the worst thing that ever happened since like Pol Pot, you know, at that point, and like and like it's like, well, how's he gonna get away? And then like not only is he get plaster Paris, then you see Cheech and Chong again, who are brilliantly deployed in this film, and I think.
Because they're not too
overutilized than others. Yes.
Did you guys know they got weed gummies? That's like every other ad on Twitter I see. Did you guys know that? Did you guys know that Cheech and Chong are selling weed gummies?
I've been getting those ads since watching this movie. Like, my computer, I guess, picked up when I was doing the intro, and I was like, Cheech and Chong. My computer must have like picked that up and been like,
did you say Cheech and or Chong? Here you go. Here's some targeted ads for you.
I'd rather get those ads than the weird, like, scammy Barbenheimer T-shirt ads that I keep seeing. I'm like, guys, don't be getting them from, like, you know, it's Elon's Twitter. We can't, you know, shit's not verified anymore.
It's the Wild West.
It really is. I mean, there's so many people selling that bootleg Jesus Lizard T-shirt when you just buy the real thing, the one that was in Nope. Speaking of Kiki, it's amazing.
Kiki Palmer, you can do better. Sorry. Yo, men, you guys are really showing your true colors. Not anyone on this panel, but I'm just saying.
3/4 of us are married. What the fuck? Forrest.
I'm over here giving tips to Jonah Hill. I don't know.
All right, but yeah. So anyway, do we want to do letterbox one-liners?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So, of course, Letterboxd is a website. It's a place. It's a social media experience for people who are film lovers who talk at it within to each other about the films that they love, maybe the films that they didn't love, the films that they were unnecessarily thirsty for Griffin Dunn. Actually, it's kind of
Not a bad look at it.
alarming. How many of them were thirst posts? And of course, all this is best expressed succinctly. You're working your tight five in front of your brick wall at the Comedy Store or something just to get into the 80s of it, right? And this is the time where these are all collected together. We put them on the screen to talk about the movie we're talking about. These are the Letterboxd one-liners for After Hours. This film is the reason I don't read Tropic of Cancer in public.
Yeah, it really does start with like the Henry Miller like kind of douchey like the quotation or whatever. He's like, "Oh, I like that this girl reads."
Yeah,
Maybe.
exactly. Yeah, and this goes downhill from there. But I like that it is Tropic of Cancer, and he feels the need to point out that it's Tropic of Cancer as well. I like that. I like that unnecessary extra tag where it's like, you could have just left that, man. You don't need you don't need to say that. Now I can truly understand what Scorsese saw in Beau Was Afraid.
Yeah, I mean, for real though, like
No, it's that is very real. More corporate New York City men should be humbled by a night like this.
Yeah, I mean, you should have to go to Soho at least once, and like, in the dead of night, and with no phone, no apps. You can't use your fucking apps. Like,
You know what though?
You can't try to get some girl to take you in because she feels bad for you on fucking Tinder. You can't do that. You're stuck, doing it like they did in the 80s.
Let's be honest. Giuliani had his after hours moment, and that's why he destroyed New York.
There you go. You reap what you sow, I guess.
This is my own personal 9/11.
Paul Is Afraid, 1985. I took away some of the oomph from this by referencing that movie like 17 times. That's on me. Sorry.
Yeah. But he could be like Beau's like grandfather or something.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I mean my review is literally basically the same thing. So
You're gonna plagiarize just like the screenwriter? Sorry.
Apparently I did, and I didn't realize it.
Tag yourself. I'm the movie freak ex-husband who screams "Surrender, Dorothy" when he comes.
It's hilarious though that he doesn't just scream it once. Like the story is like he's screaming it again and again and again and again. He just can't stop.
He just doesn't stop. He just wouldn't stop. He just wouldn't stop.
And then he went to fucking Turkey to get away from his Surrender Dorothy problem.
As one does, yes. People who romanticize the 80s are crazy. Imagine not being able to call an Uber and then this shit happens. Yes. Yes. Paul Hackett. Lord, why do you give me your toughest battles? God, you are my horniest soldier.
That is kind of what he's atoning for, right? Like just being horny and going to a neighborhood.
It's horny jail.
Exactly.
Bonk.
Exactly. Oh, because all the stuff that happened was happening after hours. I get it.
Well, the guy says it.
He says it.
Dick
Miller
There's
says
different
it.
rules.
Yeah.
There's different rules at night. Yeah, you can see my bald ass head over the.
There's Paul Stanley making a surprise appearance.
That's another thing about the 80s. I'll tell you, all you young people, is that there wasn't a lot of 24-hour stuff. Like everything. Well, it's kind of stopped again, but there, that whole era of 24-hour, like it was like New York City had like 24 hours, Chicago maybe, but it was like there were very few places in the world where you could have a late night after hours experience.
Just to hang out and wait for the buses to start up again, or something.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
New York City has different laws than the rest of the state still too. Like you can still be at like a certain after hours clubs at like 6 a.m. I mean, you shouldn't be, but you can be.
And actually, even like a generation before, my mom talks about going to New York City when she was, a college age, and it was safe. It was like, it wasn't even like after hours. It was like you could go there. It was all night, and it wasn't dangerous, and it wasn't, you weren't, going to be followed by a mob or anything like that. It was, a very kind of wonderful cosmopolitan 24-hour city.
Exactly. I don't ever want to hear shit about being a homebody.
Right?
Totally. Yeah. This is my reason for staying home.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
his apartment is also beige. His phone is beige. His like clothes that he's wearing are like, off color. You know what I mean? Like it's very funny that like he starts out there and he's like fucking horny. And he's clearly horny in his like American Psycho ass apartment.
Wow. Again, this is why I never go out. Same principle. Those are the Letterboxd one-liners for After Hours. Please follow the show. That's Mr. Mohawk over there. Conceptual art show at Club Berlin, Movie Night Extra, representing the show, all the wonderful movies that we cover here. I, of course, am Conan Neutron. It is possible, but not at the moment, to follow me. You would have to be on Letterboxd to do that. I'm covering the highbrow, the midbrow, the populist fare. Follow me along for the Criterion Challenge if you dare. I'm all over that business. Last Night in Soho there. This is hard. There's not as much room to move in this view. Last Night in Soho is Kristina Oakes there, not the movie. She's on Letterboxd. Maybe she'll come back and log some stuff for you. Maybe she won't. There's a movie coming out that she's pretty excited about, so maybe we'll see something from Kristina there.
I don't know. I haven't heard her talk about it at all.
Yeah, exactly. Does anybody know her thoughts on this? Anybody? Jay Underworld, a.k.a. Surrender Dorothy, is watching all the weirdest stuff so you don't have to, or maybe so you can. I don't know. It's not for me to judge. It's not my place to say, but he's doing it either way, with or without you, so you can follow him on there. He's all over Letterboxd. Rick Valentin, the word processor down there, is on Letterboxd. He's kind of stealth about it. RNV123. By the way, I appreciate the universal handle that you go by, because more people should do that, myself inclusive, for the show. And occasionally we'll log some things on there. I think you mostly use like watch list functioning.
Yeah, just to remember what I watched.
Which is how I started, and then I just ended up, with all this. Here we are. But of course, we got plugs. So, Jay Underworld, please take us away with the plugs. Why don't you?
All right. If you're watching us on YouTube right now, please do those YouTube things. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell. And the big ask, of course, is watch the video to the end. That lets you hear a great Conan Neutron song, but also allows us to be discovered by other movie fans. So if you can, please do that. We're also over on Twitch. So do the Twitch things. Throw us a sub. If you have an Amazon Prime account, you can subscribe for free. Doesn't cost you a penny, but that actually helps us out, which would thank you if you're able to do that. We are on other social media sites too. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and now Blue Sky. We hacked Blue Sky. We got ourselves some codes, and we're on there now.
Just in time for everybody to be mad at it, apparently. But anyway.
Are they? I don't know.
Yeah.
Threads is next. We got this.
Threads kind of annoys me, but
I'm not into Threads at all.
First
of all, I won't be on it until you can do something other than algorithm. I'll never ban anything. It's pure algorithm. Ever.
Yeah, the thing about Threads.
If you see me on those things, shoot my electronic avatar in the face, because it's a body snatchers moment. Thank you.
I would say the one nice thing about Threads is that you can join in. All of a sudden, you have all your friends from your other social media sites there.
Yeah, you just can't see their posts. That's the only problem.
Yeah.
You don't see whatever celeb utard is mouthing off at that moment.
Yeah.
Great. Sounds awesome. Sorry, anyway.
But we have a Patreon, and you should join our Patreon so you can actually hear straight from us, unlike Threads, and you can get access to things like the after party, like we're going to be having tonight.
Which we're doing a special one, right? So KT is going to come on and talk about the strike.
So so as soon as we get done here, we're going to jump on with KT. And Rick, you're obviously perfectly welcome to join us. I hope you do. We're going to be talking about the SAG strike and the Writers Guild strike going on at the same time.
And KT is a member of SAG, just.
Yeah, so she's going to be kind of going through with the demands and like the contract with us and what they're striking for. And also we're going to talk, I think, about the future of AI a little bit and creative industries.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun.
We're going to fit all that in the after. Okay, never mind.
Yeah,
I mean, there are conversations that are intertwined because
it's ambitious.
They're conversations that are. Well, I also clips for that, but
that's why everyone should join the Patreon so they can see all of this stuff.
This one's
right?
gonna be public. I think as long as it's. I mean, if it's an unproductive conversation,
quiet you.
then you'll know. When
No,
I'm,
hey, yeah, sure. Undercut the pitch for the Patreon. You always complain you have no money, and this is why. Right
Product
here.
placement.
This is
exactly.
This is
Like
me
the
be like,
welcome windows.
I have no money. Anybody want a free stream? Anybody want a free? I got a free stream.
I got that AI discussion. Nah, anyway, thank you. That's a drug deal reference. by the
It
way.
might even sag a little bit, you know.
Yes. So
Sad?
Conan, you just had M. Martin of coordinated suicides in Pink City.
And Pink City and Caryatids as well. Yeah, no, it's Mike's great. That was an awesome show. That is on. That's actually in the general feed now. And yeah, it was a good one. I got Ryan Christopher Parks coming up this week from B. Hamilton, which is great. And there's a new B. Hamilton record. I think I'm going to kind of premiere. What is it? Yeah, preview. It's a preview and a premiere. I need like some portmanteau of those two words, but one of the songs of the new B. Hamilton record. So
It's weird because they both start with pre, so it's really hard to
you would
do
think
that.
it would work, yeah, but it's like no. Then it sounds like you're saying PP, and no one's looking for that. But yeah,
He said BB.
No. And you got a Patreon for your Protonic Reversal, so you can get that early if you subscribe.
$1 a month, early access. It's Bernie Sanders model. Lots of donors, low
For
low
$1.
number. $1.
Yes. And you got shows coming up in Louisville and Ohio, two in Ohio, I believe.
Yes, Cincinnati and Columbus, Friday and Saturday, Louisville, Kentucky on Sunday for MagFest, and then we have a Madison, Wisconsin show at the next Saturday. And we just played with a little old band called Poster Children in Milwaukee, technically Cudahy, and it was
Be
great.
careful about Cincinnati because apparently the Oppenheimer folks are probably going to, for their last promo, bomb the city of Cincinnati.
Like a promo bomb or like a real bomb? Like I saw the thing where it's like
earlier.
where they was talking about Chris Nolan being like he always uses practical effects, and it's like even for this one.
U.S. government's like, what are you guys doing over there?
Yeah,
I like the idea that like the fucking SAG strike happens and they all walk off the promo thing, so they don't have any more actors to promo it anymore.
we're good
And
with
he's
that.
just have the bombs
he's like,
now.
you know what? Let's just drop an atom bomb on a mid-sized
exactly. That'll
American
solve it.
city.
Yeah, Cincinnati sounds great. Nobody goes there.
Nothing will promo. It'll be like the end of Return of the Living Dead. Remember?
Yeah.
And what you're gonna have to hide underground. A lot of malls have underground movie
Yo, I
theaters.
know
What else are you
people
gonna
in
really
town
do?
who
You
got
know.
bunkers.
This is quite the spec script we're putting together here. What's next, Andy?
Yeah, I was just going to say, neutronfriends.bandcamp.com. Get
Yes.
yourself some Conan Neutron music. And
Please, I'm broke. Thank you.
yeah,
Same.
yeah, no free
Not
streams
really,
from Conan.
We have a new record coming out, and one of these shows I'll be able to announce it. Not yet. It's coming soon enough.
Yeah, cool stuff is coming.
Big things coming. Yeah, exactly. I hate it when people do that. Hey, big stuff coming. Just wait and announce it when it happens. Then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, just
I'm an
stay tuned.
impatient woman. Just kidding.
Exactly. It's a busy world out there.
But you know what though? You can be patient and get Kristina on Twitch.
Yes.
Oh, how's that for transition? Smooth.
Yeah.
B minus, but you know.
Yeah, no, it wasn't great.
I'm gonna be back next week. I've been busy dog sitting because I needs the money. I've been making, sweet money. I'm gonna be making $900, like dogs, like just cat sitting for one cat. Which I'm like, I ain't bitching. I could use that for cosplay and computer parts. But yeah, and I brought back my Patreon, patreon.com/cosmopolitics. I have booked my first interview after forever. Friend of the show, Andy Kindler.
Woo! That's
yeah,
awesome.
that's gonna be great.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun.
What was the movie with the cat and the like the cat inherited the money? You know what? Never mind. I don't even care. Never mind. I was going to make a reference to a movie I barely
What we
remember.
should be talking about
Garfield.
is
No.
Poster Children, or just talk over me. Yeah, I was just going to say we should be
Follow
talking
your
about
bliss.
Rick and Poster Children, and of course Salaryman, which I totally misspelled, which I wrote Salary Ma'am. So,
Good too.
What in the?
Sorry, ma'am.
We
That's a
we
free
did it
EP
in the last
title for
minute.
you.
yeah, I'm like looking at that going, that's spelled wrong. Okay.
Yeah. Well, Poster Children just played, so we missed promoting that. Could have planned that better.
Yeah, we don't have any.
We did plug it.
shows
We did plug it
scheduled.
last week, though.
Thank
We-
you.
we-
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, you just played Chicago, you played Madison. Anything else on the hopper for the OP kids?
Nothing in the hopper. Yeah, no. That's it.
And of course, you got Radio Zero. People can check that out. It's what is it? Twice a week or every other week?
Every other week. Yeah. What does
Yeah.
bi-weekly mean? Yeah, it means both. Yeah.
Yeah.
Twice a week or
It
every
means
Bi-curious
it means-
weekly.
Yeah, it means you buy every week.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of which, happy birthday bisexuality. It was actually given a label like 20 years ago by Newsweek.
I was like, the concept? I think it's been around longer than that, but yeah.
I know, but they made it mainstream.
Well, I mean, it was called like I remember like
They made
my
it
mom used to
political.
always tell me about the Elton John interview where he's like, "I'm AC/DC,"
Hmm.
Oh yeah,
which
I
was
remember
like
that.
a weird term for bisexuality back in the 70s, and that's what my mom
Good
always
for
mentioned,
him.
like growing up.
Yeah, if you don't have the nomenclature, sure. What are you,
No, yeah, it's AC/DC. You know, you're either Back in Black or you're Highway to Hell.
I'm more of a Power Age kind of guy, but whatever.
Or you're pansexual. You're only attracted to kitchen utensils.
Wolf.
Wow.
Yeah, you know that joke didn't go over well when my kid told me they were when they were pansexual, and
So one of my friends one time came out as pansexual, and I was like, "Pots too?" And they didn't think that was very funny.
let me just get us out of this bit entirely. Lost and Found and Rewound podcast, which is a great movie podcast that I guess is coming back. Rick, can you tell us?
Yeah,
more?
yeah. There's talk about it. There's talk.
I don't understand like the episodes.
we're putting
have,
the rumors back out of the streets. So
Yeah,
We're
no,
in
I
these
don't
streets.
understand it either.
That's like
Yeah.
that's like when you're talking about how like your movie might come out, and you're like, "We're in talks."
Yeah. Oh no, it is a negotiation.
Well, I can say I do enjoy that show, which Rick is on when it has happened in the past and apparently the future. And like, there's this weird naming convention that is supposedly aligned with the movies and nobody can figure out, including most of the people on the show.
Exactly.
But it's a good show. So if people like this show, which one would hope they do if they're checking it out.
this is all the hate watchers. We just have hate watchers.
I don't know what exactly. They should also check that out because that's easy to forget about as well. And Thoughtsy Texting Machines as well, which I love quite a bit. And copies of that split 7-inch still available.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually sold a couple on Saturday. So
Great.
There you go. All right.
Yeah.
Anything else, Andy? What else? What we got?
That's pretty much it. We passed my birthday, so you know that was
Happy
Friday.
belated birthday. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
You get to do whatever what you saw that band that you wanted to see.
Yeah, I
right?
saw the fawns. No, not but you know, like the deer.
Hey.
But yeah, no, it was fun seeing them. They had surprise guests, the Winter Pills come up and sing backup on a couple tracks, which was cool. Winter Pills was on the TV show Weeds. If y'all are fans,
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
See, now you're really gonna get those targeted ads, Forrest.
Hey man, you know that show Weeds, man? Well, now we have Cheech and Chong edibles.
Oh my god, I
But
get the ad.
but Rick, do you have any final thoughts about this movie or about? I mean, we're gonna talk for a while, I'm sure, about everything else in the world. So anything about this movie that we didn't get to?
Oh yeah, nothing that I can think of. Just thanks for letting me talk about. I think
Thanks for
one of my
coming on.
favorite movies. This is I just watching it again. That's really a barometer for me, is if I can keep watching it and not grow tired and not stop laughing. And I haven't grown tired of this film and haven't stopped laughing yet. So that's a good sign. So thank you for this opportunity to talk about it. I loved it.
Of course. Kristina, final thoughts?
Very, very underrated and underappreciated Scorsese film, and that I highly recommend. If you're looking for something that's not Goodfellas or Casino or Raging Bull, this is your film.
I thought you said Cristino for a second.
You don't remember that? I think it was a Paramount Plus reboot series, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Thank you, Paramount Plus. This,
but Conan, final thoughts?
yeah, I love the subgenre of the late night odyssey full of shenanigans and antics. This is for me the the upper echelon of that genre. And again, it's incredible to think how much of this is influenced. And in some cases, people may not even know this film, but they appreciate the children of this film. And it's wild that, much like we said with Mean Streets, that people forget that movie exists, and it's like, no, that movie is really good. Like, it's not even like upper tier Martin Scorsese. I feel like this is upper tier Martin Scorsese, but it's just so doesn't fit nicely in any easy category, which honestly are some of my favorite films. And I am going to side with the word processor down there. It's deeply hilarious, very much on my sensibilities. And I like that he's not an outright villain. He just makes the wrong decisions and doesn't listen. And it just gets worse and worse and worse. And I would argue that there wouldn't be a Curb Your Enthusiasm without an After Hours.
Sorry.
Yeah, Andy.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen this movie since high school. It's like one of those movies that would have come on like Saturday afternoon while I was drawing, and I just would have on in the background. And I enjoy a lot of these things, and sometimes I just didn't even know what the movie was. So thank you for kind of bringing it back to me, because it was nice to actually really sit down and watch it, even though I was drawing the entire time this time too. But that's another story. But yeah, no, and I do really think it's fascinating to watch, because this is a nice capturing this the moment of the 80s, understanding the malaise of being a yuppie, as well as that transition of New York from that we've lost, because when I took my kids to New York, I'm just like, man, we didn't even get to see any crimes. There was literally only one angry homeless person. What the hell,
Not getting the authentic experience, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
By the way, when you guys were talking about how his big sin is really not listening, I was just thinking about Barton Fink with John Goodman, where he's like, "You don't listen."
So good. So good.
Another one set in LA too.
But yeah, so we're gonna go to the SAG-AFTRA stream in a few minutes. Continue this conversation over there. I put the link in the chat here. I'll put the link for I'll put the link into the chat itself right now while we're still on the stream doing this live.
That's right.
Yeah, he had no bits played, as you could tell. This is
usually a much more succinct ending. Yeah,
yes.
But we're just
play me
prolonging
off,
the magic.
Anyway,
should I have talked longer in my closing thoughts there?